So hello and welcome to the first meeting of Anonymous Linguists. My name is Randi and I'm a dinosaur. That's at least how I considered people in my organization when I joined, and they told me that they had been there for more than 25 years. And some of them were. We had one translator who never turned on her PC. She retired in 2002, and that was probably the best for everyone. So let's start from the beginning. I'll take you on a little time trip. We will start around 2,000 years ago, a little more than that. So we had things carved in stone, and stone is obviously a wonderful material. Whatever you put there will stay there. If you make a typo, oh God, it's complicated. So that's basically why we had to find other ways of communicating our written statements. So paper and parchment obviously are easier to transport. These materials are light, but they do have a couple of weaknesses as well, and you have to live with that. It can be difficult. Making changes, probably easier on paper than when you have things carved in stone. The downside, of course, is paper burns. Perhaps you have seen the film The Name of the Rose, where the whole library burns. It's lost. Stones don't really burn that easily. So yeah, both things have their bright sides. So the written communication on paper with the ink, some sort of ink, became the new best practice. And I think that's a very good thing. Then we had a typewriting era, because we wanted to print things, and we started using ways of printing on paper still with some sort of ink. Later we had really typewriters. We had even typewriters with memory, so that was really very advanced. It of course made it a lot easier to make changes in texts. So is that a blessing or is it a curse? I don't know how you operate in your organizations, but we are an in-house translation service, and our colleagues will draft a text, and 2 days later they'll send us a new version because somebody had a brilliant idea, and then 2 days later, so approximately 5 minutes before the deadline, they'll come up with something new. So I'm not really sure that it's so great that people can make a lot of changes. Of course, it also makes it easier for the translators to make changes in their translations. Is that okay? Yeah, that's okay. We always want to have the better solution. So we had one of the bigger revolutions. We had the start of network for telephones, the modems. Who worked with a modem? Great. And those who are not based in Germany can answer this question. Who used a fax? Okay, great. So yeah, I mean, all of this means you can dispatch things more easily. So paper or modems, it speeds up the process. The translate button on the computer's keyboard doesn't really exist yet, but we are going there. So the Babelfish, who knows the Babelfish? Great. I'm sometimes wondering if AI will actually be our Babelfish, because we have loads of ways of communicating with each other, and it's easy, it's very handy, we have it all on our mobile phones. So, can we ask for more? Yeah, of course we can. But let's get back to the time before AI and the time when I started in the translation sector. So that was in 1992, which is why I'm the dinosaur in the room. So we had, in my first job, the technology of the past. We had floppy disks. We had some very floppy ones that were not very good to dispatch by post, because they could have a minor injury and you could not read the content. Then we had the smaller one, which had a harder case, so the data was more protected. Sending things by fax to translators, getting the results back by mail. So, oh, really? That's great. Were you happy with it? Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I think you can probably imagine the workflow, but let me show it to you. So you would receive a source text from your client by post, or perhaps they would send a courier because it was really urgent. So overnight, and you would have the text so that you could start. Then you would analyze the text, basically meaning you would count it manually, and you would make a guess. And then you would establish a quote that you would send by fax. Some clients were not so much in a hurry, so they could receive the quote by post. Then you would get the green light, probably with a phone call. And then you would dispatch the source text to the translator. I mean, where I worked, some of the translators lived close by, so they would come and pick up things. Or I would, on my way home from work on my bicycle, because that was in Denmark, I would go past their house and deliver it to them. So very personal, but, well, I'm not a slow cyclist, but... an email is faster, believe me. And then you would start waiting. I mean, you had, of course, given a deadline, and then you would receive your translation. And then you repeat the whole session for the revision. I remember faxing things in 1993 to Lithuania. The phone lines were horrible. You could not get a line through in the course of the day because they were overloaded. So you had to fax in the evening, and you stayed in the evening until 10 o'clock to make sure that the fax actually went through, and then you hope that somebody had put paper in the fax on the other side, because otherwise, next evening, same process. And then you started waiting for 3 weeks, and your floppy disk would arrive by mail. Yeah, and then in the end you would send your text to the client by post, of course, or by courier if it was really fast. If it was somebody inside the same town, you could have a bicycle courier. So that was the workflow. I'm not sure it would work today, but it doesn't have to. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm not saying that faxes are useless, not at all. I mean, you can use a fax for a great many things if you can find somebody to fax something to. So, so that was basically what we were facing back then. But in the mid-90s, in the company where I worked, we started working with traders. We had a customer who had a big project with a lot of text repetitions, and obviously we looked into technology and we implemented Trados. So when I arrived at the European Investment Bank in 1999, it was basically the same situation that I found on at least the CAT tool side. We had Translators Workbench that was used by the people who thought that it could be useful. Some were not really keen on this, because how can I possibly be creative if I have something dictating what I should say? Okay, that's not quite how Trados works, but that was the perception. And you can also discuss how creative you actually have to be if you're translating a board report. But of course, it has, you need to discuss these things. We also had a database to track our translation requests. It was actually meant for people who worked in the library, but I mean, you fiddle a bit with the settings and then it can work as some sort of, at least, a retention of the data. We had a workflow system as well, known as the cupboard. Each language unit had its own cupboard, and they would have 3 rows of work. So translation at the top, revision in the middle, and correction at the bottom. And the files, so paper files, would move in the process. And it actually worked. So that's the good thing. It was not very sophisticated. But I mean, we did have some people who had a look at Trados and saw some potential in this. And that's when you have a little challenge. You need to manage some expectations, because Trados is not the solution for everything. But you also have to meet, to take care of the non-expectations. A lot of people did not want to hear about it at all. The said ex-colleague who did not open her computer, I mean, she was definitely not a keen Trados user. So we stepped it up a little. We had a period of time where we were pushing a bit more for the tools. We were moved away from the main building, and we needed to not rely on the internal post anymore, so we needed to set up a system. We also saw some increases in the workload, so we needed to be more efficient. We continued working with the Trados, sporadically still, but a bit more. And we created our own workflow system. Scott talked about this earlier as well. That was sort of the reflex. We need to have something, let's build it. So we built some, we had a ticketing system, and it was turned into a TMS as well. The workflow was still the cupboard. So the challenge in that period of time was actually to see the opportunities, and also to convince people that it was not just a lot of obstacles. There are really some opportunities by using tools, and we cannot just look at things in the good old way, and we need to move ahead. As an in-house service, we're not obliged to have a profit, but of course we have an obligation to be efficient. So it goes hand in hand. And then we had the shock in 2011. We had a reorganization. We simply streamlined the way we were set up, and we heard about that yesterday as well. So we had a central unit, the PMU, created. We used to have language units with translators and secretaries. And now we created a central unit that would sort of deal with the general things, which made sense, but it was not really welcome. Luckily, we also introduced PluNet at around the same time. So PluNet was blamed for a lot of things, because it's a lot easier to be unhappy with a software product than to be actually unhappy with your manager, because your manager says, no, you are no longer in this group, you are now in this group. And you no longer do this work, but you do this work. So being unhappy with a software product is really a lot easier. It doesn't talk back. Managers may, for now. I mean, yes, exactly. So let's see. Perhaps it will have its own Babel fish, which I hope, because I'm not really good at software coding. So that was quite a shock, and it's not always easy when you're in the middle of it. I do remember a situation where somebody had a very red face and tears in the eyes and shouting about the real revision work and showing us the documentation from a book written in 1977. And we were then in 2012. Okay, perhaps communication has changed in between, perhaps not. We will leave that to the archaeologists to discover that. So from 2012, when we really rolled out PluNet, we kept on the track with renewing our software products, so we also implemented Studio. We abolished the cupboard. Of course, it existed for a while, but it was not recommended, but it was tolerated for about 6 months. And then I think everybody saw that it was pointless to have it. Because actually we had PluNet where we had the overview, so why would we want a cupboard to also have an overview over the same things? We introduced machine translation between 2012 and now. We use Studio for more or less all of our projects. There are exceptions, of course. We sometimes have some really poor scans. The best ones are the ones where somebody had a piece of paper on their desk and they poured some coffee onto it. The machine translation tool doesn't really like it. But we use it and it moves ahead. And that's when also people start thinking about all this progress. Well, it's all very good, but what will happen to my job? And of course, we also need to take care of that side of things. There is a whole lot of effort to be done to get people on board, to make them take ownership of the products. So where are we now? Well, we are now at the point of streamlining our processes. We have some functionalities in PluNet that we are not so happy about because it doesn't really fit the way we are organized. We are thinking about doing some coding in PluNet, but we have not quite the knowledge in-house, but it's something that we want to explore. And perhaps, who knows, AI will be a solution somehow. We'll see. I know that AI can do a lot of things, so why not? We also want to step up the use of APIs. We have, again, recently been reorganized and are now part of a different department. A department that is also a big requester of translations. They have some workflow tools and it would make sense to make an integration. We use machine translation. We are experimenting with the use of AI, trying to get some experience and finding good use cases, finding out how we can apply both machine translation and AI in a good way to get optimal results. The introduction of new tools and ways of working, of course, also will probably influence our quality criteria. We are a bit looking at, do you have machine translation or AI translation as the first set of eyes, and then the human is the second pair of eyes? How can you define this, and what is acceptable? I think that we have a lot of things that we are revising, or at least crediting the reviser for revising, without actually having a very good reason for revising things again and again. So, is AI our new best friend, or is it our worst enemy? That is what we are now facing, because of course we have a few existential questions, as we've had them before. I think that this is the best attack on the human's role, but I think that the human is not superfluous. We will probably see some changes in the way we work, and I mean, we're in the middle of it. Just that we are having the discussions, and we have some examples of application of technologies. That's really great. So, yeah, but there are still some people in the game, and I mean, software doesn't speak back yet. And therefore you can do with it whatever you want, but the people do want to have a say. So a few tips about surviving change management, because we have had quite some radical changes, at least it felt like it. And when the going gets hot, the hot get going, in particular the hot-headed and the ones who are very loud get to have a big say, and it can be difficult to manage. So my tips are: have a clear goal, follow up on your progress and communicate it to people, stay calm and take feedback on board. This is a way of ensuring that people take ownership of whatever you're trying to change. They need to have influence, otherwise they won't be on board. You talk to them, you address resistance, because resistance is bound to happen. And it will not go away if you just ignore it. It's like change, actually. Change won't go back if you just ignore it. You talk to people, you listen to them, you support your team, you give them what they need in form of training and any information. You're open to questions, you give honest answers, or at least not confirm them if they are very resistant. No, you need to listen to people. It's really important. And first and foremost, to protect yourself, don't take it personally. It's not you they're angry about, it's the change. And you personify it. And I mean, that's why it's ideal to have a reorganization at the same point in time when you apply a new software, because the software will get the blame for everything. And the software will prove that it has its value. So that's great. So that was it. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions?
Randi, this was very interesting. I have one question. So you talked about a lot of changes that you yourself, experienced. What is different now? And does this current change make you more scared? Are you more scared of this one, or you have any different feelings about this one?
No, I don't really have a different feeling about this one. I do see that it has an impact on people's lives. And I also know that our organization has reduced the outsourcing to freelancers a whole lot by using machine translation. We offer the EU Commission's machine translation tool to everybody in the organization. So they use it mainly for gisting, meaning that you are a Spanish engineer. You're going to make an evaluation of a project in Poland. You have 300 pages of documentation that you need to read before the meeting on Friday. And on Wednesday you find out, oh shit, it's in Polish, and I don't understand Polish. So what do? Well, you send it through the machine translation so that you at least have an idea. So that's what we offer for fast-track translations, where you have one sector expert having written a text for another sector expert who can apply common sense and say, oh, that cannot be true. So that's a way of dealing with that. AI puts a different dimension into things, but I think that if we are driving the process, if we are on the forefront, we have the knowledge, we stay informed, we take the initiative, I think that we will not be superfluous. If we sit down and say, okay, that's the end of it, then we will be superfluous. And those are also the people that we don't need in the organization. We need people who have an open mind, who will play along, who will play the game. If we don't have people who want to play the game, then we're busted. So we need to have people experimenting. Our German team is doing a great job experimenting with AI for translation of press releases, and they have really good results. So why not? It will not go away. We cannot just ignore it until it goes away. I mean, I'll probably retire in not so many years, but I need to create an environment that my colleagues can live and work in. And I mean, retirement is also a change. So another challenge. So yeah, sorry guys, changes will never stop.
More questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Randi. That was a great talk. One of your last comments was, don't take it personally, which I think is great advice, but do you have any tips, aside from focusing your anger or other people's anger on the tool, for how to achieve that? How to achieve not taking it personally?
Well, I think if you have a hobby like kickboxing or like me, I'm a keen horse person, and I know if I'm not fully with my horse, I'm busted because he'll outsmart me. I have a very smart horse, so I think you need to have something to balance it out. And you need to look at the things that you're doing, and you know that you have an impact on people's lives. But you also need to have the shared goal in view. And I think that's really important. And you need to believe in what you're doing. If you don't believe in it, it's difficult to sell it to other people. So you need to put your heart in it, but not to take it personally. It requires some training. And I mean, something to balance it out is really important. And don't balance it out on husbands and kids and other innocent creatures.
Thank you very much.